4:45 in the morning, she found that gun and took her life as the sun was coming up on a beautiful July day. She just felt that hopeless. There's not one moment in my life that was more devastating than that moment.
Suicide is the 10th leading cause of death in our country. It's the second most common cause of death for young people between the ages of 10 and 24.
She was going through a very hard time, and she was in a place where she was in a dark place, but it was a temporary thing. And she first attempted suicide by walking in front of a car. She lived with her boyfriend at the time, who had 14 guns in the house. He put up all of his guns in the barn. He thought that he got them all and he thought they were safely stashed in the barn. She went and got one of the guns and she took her life. She suicided with the gun. It was a temporary thing she was going through. It would have passed and she would still be with us today. And my nieces and nephews would still have a mother. And my great nieces and nephews would still have a grandmother. And my parents would still have a daughter. And I would still have my sister if those guns had been locked up safely.
And in the last 10 years, the number of veterans who have died by suicide was greater than the entire U.S. death toll in Vietnam.
My experience in the military was shaky. Being a part of a structure like the military was also great. I loved it. I learned a lot. But when they shipped me to Germany, depression kicked in a horrible way. I started indulging in substances, and suicide, I thought, was the only way. So it took me a long time to even talk about it, but yeah, I've made a couple of attempts in the military and outside the military. Probably more than half of the veterans and active duty members have a gun. You couple that, right, with mental illness such as depression, that's a recipe for disaster.
It's a critical mental health issue, but that's not all it is. It's a firearm safety issue too. Why? Because when someone in crisis has access to a firearm, 9 times out of 10, a suicide attempt will be more than an attempt. So how do you know if someone is in crisis? There are some common warning signs. They might talk about things that alarm you. They might do unusual things that raise red flags. Take these signs seriously, and, if you can, take action to help prevent an irreversible tragedy.
My advice is pay attention and take what people say seriously and listen for those underlying clues, because very often hindsight is 20/20 and you say, why didn't I see that? Or why didn't I know that?
Keeping our family safe was very important to both of us. We live in the country. Hunting and guns is just a very natural part of our lives and, the culture that we find ourselves in.
It's always a good idea to have guns locked up, but additional locks might be a good idea in times of crisis. Separating guns and ammunition can help too.
We definitely believe that you can safely own guns, but you have to be safe. You have to make sure you're storing things properly, that you are educating everybody in your household. That extends outside our family. That's also our friends, our relatives who don't, that are not our immediate family, but who may come and visit. It really is just about educating the people who come into our home.
Finding alternate places to store firearms is another good strategy. Law enforcement and responsible gun dealers can help with this.
Get a gun lock, right? To me, that's not enough. You have to tell someone that knows you, that loves you, that you trust, hey, listen, I'm going through this mental illness. That's where the acceptance comes in. I'm going through this mental illness. I need you to hold my guns for me. I couldn't imagine having a gun in my house today, knowing that I still suffer from depression.
Anything that keeps a firearm safely out of the hands of a person in crisis can make all the difference.
We engage with working with block clubs, working with businesses, working with the schools. The last thing I would ever want to do is take a gun out of a gun owner's hand. That's not anything at all that we're involved with doing. But the idea is to make sure that gun owners are using it safely and securely, making sure that it's kept in a safe, secure location that, again, isn't readily accessible.
So it's not infringing on your rights. It's protecting the safety of others.
Half the time that a youth dies by suicide using a firearm, it's them using their parents' firearm.
Firearm suicide make up half of all suicides. In fact, nearly 2/3 of all gun deaths in the U.S. are suicide.
More than 20 veterans die by suicide day. More veterans die by suicide than in combat.
I would be the last person to say to take people's guns because I love my guns. They have a purpose.
The key is to put time and distance between a person in crisis and a firearm. It can save their life. And where there's life, there's hope.